Hello world and welcome to another episode of FooBar. In today's episode we are going to talk about S3 Lifecycle Policies. If you want to know more about serverless, cloud computing or software engineer practices in general, subscribe in the red button below. I post videos on Tuesdays and on Thursdays. So let's get started. This is another video in my series Get Certified with me, and again I have Cobus, my colleague, joining us today to explain us about S3 Lifecycle Policies. So let's get to it. Hello and welcome to another episode with Cobus. So I think I will call this series episode with Cobus. Because it's the third time you join me now, and today we are going to talk about S3 and lifecycle policies, and I don't know what else you have plans for us, but it's part of the continuation of the previous two episodes where we started working with virtual machines and RDS and all these security aspects of it. So yeah, how are you doing?
Cool. I am doing well. We are still having pretend winter this time. You can't see it in the video, but I'm sitting here with a t-shirt and shorts and the open window because it is 21 degrees Celsius.
Nice.
In the middle of winter.
That's good. I think I'm in Finland with 21 degrees Celsius in the middle of summer, so we're good.
Yeah.
So introduce a little bit the topic and let's dip into it.
Okay, cool. So today what I want to do is I want to chat a little bit more about S3, which is a simple storage service from AWS. And it's where you would store files in a very one-line description. However, there's a lot more behind the scenes about S3. So, for example, there are things called lifecycle policies, because when you store a file on S3, you get to choose the durability of it. So in other words, do you want the standard one where it's spread across 3 availability zones with 6 copies, or do you only want the infrequently accessed version, which is on 1, etc. There's a whole lot of different storage tiers that you can store your file on based on your needs. And then also there are lifecycle policies that actually help you jump between the different ones depending on how long you want the file saved. So what I want us to take a look at today is the standard access, the infrequent access, and then all the other different tiers. And then I also want us to look at those lifecycle policies and how to manage it and change them between the different tiers.
Awesome. So let's get to it.
Awesome. So we are going to jump straight into the console. So let me quickly share my screen. And what we can see over here is that I've added some links over here. So if we go to S3, I'm just opening it up. Sorry, I am in the bottom of Africa, so my internet is a little bit slow if I go to the region. What we have here is the S3 portion of the console. I'm going to create a new bucket for us for today, and we are going to be calling it FooBar codes video, just for fun. And we'll be creating it inside the island region, and we just hit the create button to do the quick create. Then we will search for the bucket quickly to go into it. We can see over here FooBar codes, and it's an empty bucket. So now what we want to do is we want to upload a file. So let me quickly select a random file that I'm going to upload. So what I've done here is I've uploaded an image of not myself and not Darko because we tend to be confused.
That's your new YouTube channel, by the way.
Yes, that is our YouTube channel. We can pop a link, I think, in the description if people are interested.
You can do like a YouTuber.
I'm a YouTuber and click down,
exactly.
And say that Darko and myself have got a new channel where we do sessions together and talk about tech. And we couldn't find a nice name, so we went for Not Cobus, Not Darko, because people are already confused with us. So yeah. Okay. So we have got this image that we're going to be uploading. So we hit the next button. And over here, it asks us about the access to this file. Now, we're not going to be covering access today. I think this is something we could possibly do in the future. But basically, this boils down to the way that the account is set up and how people share this.
Yeah.
Cool. And then we hit the next button again. And this is where we want to talk about today. So let me quickly get that on the screen. So when you upload a file to S3, you get to choose the storage class. And this is where the fun comes in. So by default, it will select the standard class, which is frequently accessed data. And you can see there in the third column over here that it says in how many different availability zones is it stored. Now, remember, even if you select the infrequent, or the one zone infrequently accessed one, this data is still replicated inside that availability zone. So it would mean that availability zone would have to pretty much burn to the ground before losing data. And also just remember that an availability zone is one or more data centers. So for the larger regions, I know that our largest availability zone is 14 data centers.
Wow.
So yes, so more than one data center will need to burn down, and you would have to be extremely unlucky because remember, we store at least 3 copies, even if it's in one availability zone. So 3 different ones, and the 3 right ones will have to burn down. So very highly unlikely happening. So yeah. But by default, it'll store it in the standard class, and that one goes across 3 availability zones and 6 copies. Now, what we also have is the next one down from that. I'm going to jump and skip the intelligent one just for the second, is the standard infrequently access. So when you think about a file that you want to store, some files you want to access the whole time and often, other files you want to just upload for safekeeping. And there are a couple of tiers to that. The first one is files that you don't access frequently. So once a month, once every 2 months, that kind of access level, or once a week. And then there are files that you know that you won't be accessing unless something goes wrong. For example, backup files.
Yeah.
Now, for these files that you access infrequently, once a week, once a month, you can go for the standard IA or infrequent access tier. And that one is that you want to store the file for at least 30 days, and you know you're not going to access it often. Then for the things like backups, you want to go down to the 3rd level, or 5th one here, which is Glacier. Now, between standard and Glacier is that Glacier takes a bit longer to retrieve. So I'll take you to the page where we have that grid or similar grid to this, and actually look at the access patterns as well after this. But Glacier is for a backup that, I'm going to be accessing this maybe once a year, maybe every 2 years if I really need to, but I want to offload it, and I'm happy if it takes me minutes or hours to retrieve this file. Yeah. Then at the very bottom, you've got Glacier Deep Archive. Now, this is which it takes it takes up to 12 hours. This is literally, we don't unfortunately have public images of what the tape libraries look like, but if you go Google for robot arm tape libraries, it actually looks like a sci-fi movie where you see there's these walls of tapes and just these little that move around and actually physically move the tapes. So that one's got the lowest cost, but also the longest retrieval time. Yeah. So if you want your file, it can take more than 12 hours to actually retrieve the file, because there's a queue of how they're moving the tapes around, when the tape is read, etc. But the cost there is like very, very low, and we'll take a look at that later as well. Then the one that I skipped here is the intelligent tiering. And this is a very interesting one. It's the first one that starts to touch on the lifecycle policy of files. And what this one does is if you select this for the object, S3 will actually keep an eye on how frequently you access the file. And if it sees that you aren't using it that often or changing it that often, it'll automatically move it to the infrequent access tier for you. And then if you do start using a lot again, it'll move it back to the standard tier for you. So it's a super useful one if you're not sure exactly how often you're going to be accessing the files to start off with. So that's those are the infrequent.
Yeah, and also that's kind of nice if you have user data, and some users come more regularly and some users don't come at all to your system. That's something you cannot forecast because it depends. So I think that intelligent tier is really cool for that type of use case as well. Like, you cannot forecast it by any.
Definitely, it's like Marciana said, it's like literally we don't know. So it's a good starting point. But also just to put a number on what is cost that we're talking about. So the S3 standard tier, which is the most expensive, and I'm going to put it in inverted commas, is 2.3 US cents per gig per month. So literally we're talking cents here. I mean, when you start running a couple of dollars, you're starting to run terabytes worth of data. So that is what the most expensive S3 storage tier is. So let me quickly actually jump to those different storage tiers on the browser and show you what that is.
Yeah, the prices for Glacier, it's ridiculously low.
Yeah, no, they are very low. So okay, what we have here now is the website. So you can see the URL at the top, the S3/storage classes. And over here, you can see the durability along with the SLA and also the different use cases over here. So starting at the left, we've got the standard tier. So this is for the most frequently accessed data. And you can see that the design durability is 9 or 11.9. So remember, between durability and availability is what is the chance of me losing the file forever and never getting it back, and availability is I want to access a file right now. What is the uptime SLA for being able to access the file. And you can see that the durability for all of these are 11 nines because of the way that SV actually makes multiple copies under the hood. So even for the single availability zone infrequently accessed one, it's got the same 11 nines durability because of the way we copy those files. But the availability, you can see, goes from 99.99, so 4 nines, to 3 nines, 3 nines. I'm not actually sure what you call it when it's not 0.9, but it's 99.5. And then Glacier is 4 nines again, and Deep Archive is 4 nines again. And what you can also see here in terms of the billing, it looks at the minimum object size. So for S3 and S3 intelligent tiering, when it's using the standard storage there's no minimum specific size. You charge per whatever. If you do 1 kilobyte, it's 1 kilobyte. Where with infrequent access, you can start seeing that it goes up to 128 kilobytes. Glacier is 40 kilobytes, and Archive is also 40 kilobytes. Okay, so then the other part here is you can see the availability zones. They are all 3 or more, except for that one availability zone over here that you can set to 1. And then here's the interesting part as well, which is the minimum storage duration charge. Now, depending on how long you store your data in S3, there's a cost associated. So the normal S3 standard access, it's literally, if I have it there for 5 minutes and for 5 gigs, we'll calculate what is 5 minutes and 5 gigs, the cost with the minimum tiers there. But for things like, for example, the infrequent access as well as Glacier, you can see there that we expect you to store it for at least 30 days or for at least 90 days, or Glacier Deep Archive is for 180 days.
So if you remove it earlier, you will get charged for the minimum.
Yes. So there's no benefit to deleting it earlier because you're not going to be saving costs. And once again, just when we talk about cost, remember that 2.3 cents per gig. That's the big cost. I can actually show you what the cost is for Deep Glacier. So let's go to S3 Glacier Deep Storage Plus. Okay. Sorry, let me click. There we go, pricing, Glacier pricing. And we're going to wait for it to load. And so similar to all our services, the pricing differs per region. So always select the right region that you're busy working with. So in our case, let us go to Europe Island. And over here, we can see that for normal Glacier pricing, it's 0.4 cents per gigabyte per month in terms of storing. And you can see over here the retrieval time. Let me just make sure. I just need to refresh it again. Sorry, I don't think the page loaded.
Yeah, I think in Europe the cheapest region is Stockholm. So if you are thinking,
that's nice for you. That's in close.
Exactly.
So what you can see over here is that the retrieval time for Glacier, the standard one is 5.5 cents per 1,000 requests. So remember, to retrieve one file is one request. So if you retrieve 1,000 files, that's 5.5 seconds. Oh, sorry, 5.5 cents. You can ask us to expedite that, and that then takes the cost up to $11. So this is just if you really need to get the file quickly and you weren't anticipating it. So instead of saying, listen, there's no way for you to get that file, we can do it, but obviously then we have to charge more for that because we're now pushing other people's further down the queue to put you in front of them. So there's going to be a cost for that.
You have all your audits, all your transactions logged stored in Glacier, and then the auditor comes by surprise, and now you need to dig them out. You pay the $11.
Yeah, remember this is with normal Glacier. That's still, I think it's up to it'll be at most 12 hours to get the file. So if you can tell the auditor, listen, we'll get the file for you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
How about we go for a night dinner tonight and we to talk about this and we'll let you know. Because there's another nice feature. We're not going to dig into it too much today, but there's a feature where you can actually use the vault in S3 to lock files. And what this means is that when you've uploaded a file to Glacier, you can enable a lock on it for a certain period, so for example, 5 years. And that ensures that you cannot change that file. So even if I wanted to and I've got admin rights, I cannot change that file on S3, which is great for regulatory and auditors. Wow. Because it means that you can tell them, listen, you can see the lock has been enabled, when was the lock enabled, and that way they know that that file cannot be changed. So if we have the situation where they want a surprise audit, you can say, well, we've actually locked the files, come back tomorrow, or come back when we've retrieved the files for you, and we'll give you and show you that the copies are the same. And it's been audited and validated, so you can easily add that feature.
That's a good feature to know. I didn't know about that. I don't work that much with government, so it's good to to know that that's there, because it's very helpful when you have audits
Oh yeah, no, definitely. So what we need to do is to see the deep Glacier pricing is we need to go to the S3 pricing page. So let's open that up quickly. And we can see over here that it also loads it with the different tiers.
All the prices, yes.
Yes. Okay. So this is now Ireland. So you can see Ireland is also 2.3 cents per gigabyte for the first 4 terabytes. Then it's tiered, so it goes down to 2.2, 2.1. I generally don't differentiate between these different tiers because not many people have more than 50 terabytes of data that they want to store in S3. But as you can see, S3 is effectively infinite storage.
Yeah, unlimited storage.
Yeah, you'll be hard pressed to fill it up. What you can see over here is the intelligent tiering, and the one that I was interested in is the S3 Glacier Deep Archive, and that one is, and I have to highlight so I can read it properly, 0.1 cents per gigabyte. Which is, so if you think about 1024 times 0.0099, it is $10 per terabyte that you're storing, that is very cheap.
Yeah.
So, okay.
It is.
So now that we are familiar with the different tiers that we have available, let me go show you how we can actually move objects between the different tiers. And for that, we're going to hop back to the console with that file that we have, that we still have to actually upload. Let's click next, and we can see here at the bottom it's got a progress bar that will show us how it's uploading the file. And once it's uploaded, we just have to refresh quickly, and now we've got this file. So to be able to add a lifecycle policy, we set that on the bucket level or folder level inside the bucket, not on the actual file. So we're going to click on management over here. So we click on the management button over here, and we can see that there is a lifecycle tab that'll be selected by default. So what we're going to do is we're going to say add a lifecycle rule. And we're going to call this, let's say, archive to Glacier after, let's say, 90 days, if the file was here that long. Then we're going to say we're going to either limit it to a specific set of prefixes or tags inside the bucket, or we can actually do it to all objects in the bucket. Now, for just simplicity for today, we're going to use all objects in the bucket. But if you did want to have very funky rules, you can say everything inside the one folder, for example, gets moved after X number of days, and things in a different folder, depending on what your needs are.
Or you can say all the pictures that I JPG to the archive, and then the rest stays, or things like that as well. Or it's only prefix.
Yeah, it's only the prefix. So in S3, you've got this concept of folders / prefixes or keys. Yeah. So you can say the start of the file name, or the specific folder structure it's in, or a specific tag that you've tagged it with. So you can, for example, when you upload a file, you can there's an SNS notification that's generated, and then you can actually consume that if you want to. So you can set up a Lambda that says every time a file is uploaded to S3, go tag it with a specific tag that has the extension on it. So you can tag it with, let's say, file type : JPEG.
Yeah, because at least Lambda get triggered also by suffix. So you can trigger a particular Lambda depending on the suffix of the file that was uploaded. So it's kind of cool. That's thinking nice, suffix. Yeah, you can, for example, trigger Lambda it's an image, for example, only for images.
Okay, no, that's great. I actually learned something as well. Thank you.
No problem.
Cool. So we are going to apply it to all the objects inside the bucket, and then we're going to say next. Now, the first one over here is to define storage class transition. So do we want the object to move to a different tier? Now, this is optional because in the next step, you'll see we can also set an expiration for when we want to delete the file after some point. So the first one we set here is that we're going to be transitioning the current version. You can also do previous versions. You can get quite complex with the rules here, but we aren't going to be covering that in detail today. It's a lot of configuration and a lot of power, but it does get a bit complex if you've got all different versions going different places. So we're just going to stick with the current version. So we're going to say we're going to do a storage transition for the current version, and let's add a transition quickly. And what we're going to say is that we're going to transition it to Glacier after 90 days. And over here, you'll see that this is a message that says, just warns you about the transitioning small objects to Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive will increase cost. And what this is about is that minimum size that we saw earlier. That's the 40 kilobyte size over here that you can see for S3 Glacier. So it'll be, if you've got a very tiny file, in our case, it's 189 kilobytes. So it won't affect us, but you need to know that in terms of the minimum size. So don't do a lot of 1K files. It rather zip up into a single archive and then put that one in Glacier. But once again, we're talking about sense here. So make a decision and say, does this really matter to me, to that extra complexity for that cost change? Cool. So that's just what it warns us over here, and then we're going to go to next. Now what you can do, in addition to transitioning a file to a different storage class, is you can set an expiration configuration on it. So I can say that, for example, this version, let's just start from the start, is going to expire after, for example, 3,650 days. So that's roughly 10 years from now. And what this does is it'll actually go and delete the file after that.
From Glacier?
Yes, from Glacier as well. Yeah. So remember, you can set multiple different rules in place. And there's actually a very nice graph over here. Let me open up the page quickly, where you go S3 Lifecycle Expiration. I normally do that, and then I click on the transitioning over here. This is just my easiest way to get here. This image actually shows it very nicely in terms of how it can work, is where you can have this waterfall model of different rules applying to when you transition it. So you can set one lifecycle rule to say move it to infrequent access after X number of days. Then after, if we see that it might be infrequent access, added to the intelligent tiering, then one tier, etc. So you can do these different rules to define how you want to actually move your file along. And at the very end, you might want to delete the file, because let's say we've got a backup file and our compliance requires us to keep it for 10 years. Okay. What we can say is that after 1 year, move it to S3 Glacier. Then after, let's say 2 years, because you might not need it, you move it to deep archive, and then after 5 years, delete it.
Exactly.
So that's what makes it super useful in terms of the set. So we're going to set that next. And then once again, what you'll see is that it'll ask us, do we want to apply this to all the objects in the bucket already? Because remember, there might already be files. And if you do a lifecycle policy, you need to decide to be aware of that we'll apply to everything in the bucket now based on the dates that they have. So if you don't want this to apply to the buckets, to the files that have been here, let's say for a year or so, you would need to copy them out or set up a new bucket with these lifecycle rules and copy them in again. Just be aware of how to do that. And then what we do is we're going to hit save. And once it's saved, now that lifecycle is created over here. You can see the quick overview of what it does. And if you want to add more, you just go ahead and click the lifecycle button, add even more.
So now basically after 90 days, our file will move to Glacier. And then after 10 years, was it like that? It will get deleted from Glacier.
Yes. So I think what we can actually do is I'll set up a lifecycle rule after this video to expire or to move the file to a different tier after 5 days, and then also a delete one for after, let's say, 30 days. And we can, for future episodes, because I'm sure we'll come back to all the other buttons over here like analytics, replication, and we haven't even touched on Amazon Athena that actually allows you to run SQL queries on CSV files in here without any backend.
Yeah. I have made a video on Athena and have not gone really into the details, so I'm pretty sure people will be happy to know more about Athena.
Okay, awesome. And that's it for what I wanted to show you today with the lifecycle policies. Like I said, we want to try and keep it fairly short and sweet with not too much detail.
But they will see you again because this is not over yet.
More buttons over here. It's one of these things I always love saying, oh, S3 just stores files, except it's got, I think it consists of 237 microservices in the background. So that should give you an indication of the amount of things it can do.
It's crazy, and they keep on adding things to S3, and every time it's more and more powerful. So, and I think it's so easy to store data in S3 and forget about it. So it's nice to have this idea of the lifecycle policies that, like, at least they will remove by themselves if you really don't need that, because sometimes we just forget about it. And if you go over the 5 gigabytes, you go over your free tier monthly, so then you start paying for it.
Yeah, definitely.
So even for normal humans without big amount of data, it's nice to set up these things and just forget about it, and then you can have all your tests and whatever with those policies, and they will get removed eventually.
Awesome.
Okay, so thank you very much, Cobus, and we see you again in a couple of weeks.
Okay, no, sounds good.
Thank you, bye.
Bye.
This was the video for today. I hope you like it. If you did, give a big thumbs up. And we are continuing with the series with Cobus for other episodes. Let me know and let Cobus know what you would like to know. What is interesting things that you would like to know more in the series. Get certified with me so we can learn all together. And I see you in the next episode of FooBar. Ciao, ciao!